Game speed, the single variable that separates levels of football. The North Americans from the South Americans, from the Europeans, from the Africans. The level of football is usually determined by how fast the game is played. And it makes sense if you think about it, because if you can play faster than another team, you can play better than another team, which means you can beat them. And that's simply because of one rule that lies in this sport. Football is a game of margins, of 1 second decisions, of just being half a second quicker than your opponent. As you see Iniesta here take this touch into space to then score the goal that leads his country to winning the World Cup, it's simply by being just half a second, half a space quicker than his defender before he closes him down, and the rest is history. So naturally, as a footballer, you ask yourself, how can I play quicker? Or in other words, manipulate game speed. Let's not waste any time and get right into it. I've concluded 3 variables that determine how fast you can play as a footballer, and they are the following. Number 1 is your understanding of football, also known as game IQ. You see, this word is thrown around a lot in the football world. I've actually struggled to understand what it meant in the beginning. So let me ask you the question right now. What do you think game IQ is? You can answer that in your head, but tell me if it sounds similar to something like this. Being able to scan and have vision on the field, to see different players, being able to play a pass that no one else saw, like Kevin De Bruyne, something along the lines of being smarter on the field and seeing things that the people don't see. And while to an extent that is true, those definitely are elements of game IQ, I've concluded a more specific and, in my opinion, accurate definition of what game IQ is based on my own watching of games and research. And with that said, the way I see game IQ is a player's ability to play quicker than his opponents due to his positional awareness, as well as his ability to recognize triggers. So I know that sounds really long and confusing. I'm going to dumb it down to you. Take a look at this clip of this Manchester City play. As you see, Bernardo Silva has the ball. He cuts into the middle and then plays it to De Bruyne, who's making the overlapping run, who then crosses it in and they score. When Bernardo Silva cuts into the middle, that is what we call a trigger in football for a player to make an overlapping run. You usually see this with wingbacks when their winger cuts in, especially when a team plays with inverted wingers. And it leads to, more space and a more free player on the side, right? And as you can see, goals. Let's say you're a striker. As soon as you see your fullback get the ball, perhaps that's your cue to drop in or move towards the side he's at. There's different things that trigger a certain player's movement. And once you can understand what the common triggers are in football, you're then able to predict the movements of different players in their positions and therefore move quicker. So I hope that was kind of clear and it, kind of makes game IQ a more understandable thing. Now, before we move into the second element, let's talk about how to actually train it, because there would be no value in me just telling you, oh yeah, hey, game IQ is this thing, you really need it, it's really important, and I'm not going to tell you how to train it, right? It doesn't make sense. So there's a lot that goes into game IQ, and I'll kind of summarize what the main forms of training I've been doing for myself for game IQ that's got me results. And that is working on 3 things, which I actually already just mentioned. So the first one is recognizing triggers, as we just talked about. If you want to learn how to recognize triggers and know what to do in those situations, watch professional matches, do a game analysis on professional matches, and then understand the movements that usually dictate other players' movements so that you can apply the same thing to your match. Now, the second thing you want to do is actually watch your own game tape and watch your own team play, because perhaps your team and your level of football includes different triggers. Perhaps you guys are not moving like the pros. So even though most of it will be the same because the triggers in football are very similar, perhaps your team has different triggers that are specific. And that actually brings me to the third method, which is studying your own team's tactics. Every team has a different approach when they play a game, which means they're going to have different triggers, different plays. So it wouldn't be beneficial if you only understood how Arsenal moves and how Hector Bellerin, moves as a wingback when your wingbacks are not inverted and, you guys don't play like Arsenal. Perhaps your wingbacks are different. So you want to take what you learn from the pros, take what you learn from your own game and your own game analysis, and then understand what your team's tactics are in a game so that you can move accordingly. You might want to ask your coach for this, because your coach is usually the one who creates those tactics, and ask your teammates and figure out how to work with them in the match and tell them different things that, will allow you to just play quicker. And the last thing I'll say about game IQ here, which is really important for you to understand, is that you just simply need more reps in order to have more game IQ. You need to play more matches in order to get used to more situations in the game. Because one mistake that a lot of footballers get, I made the same mistake, a lot of guys doing game analysis and game IQ videos on YouTube are making the same mistake, is that we think that footballers are consciously like processing 5-6 different things before they receive a ball, and they make all these decisions in their head. Like, let me tell you, at the high levels, especially at the pro levels, players are playing through instinct, and they only get 1 or 2 seconds to think about their next move. The ball's moving like this, players are coming in like this. There is no time to be doing all these things. Now I get it, in certain positions in the field, you actually can rest, see, look. But in most scenarios, when you're in the middle of an attack or a link-up play, it's very unreasonable to think that a player can consciously register, consciously I say, because they are doing it subconsciously, which is playing through instinct. It becomes very unreasonable to think that you're going to be able to consciously, figure out all these little things and micro-analyze the ball and the player and do all these cool things within the span of 3 seconds, 2 seconds before a player closes you down. So learn how to play through your instincts, which is done by playing so many matches, as when you play so many matches, you become familiar with every single situation you can be in. Therefore, when you're in that situation in a game, your body already registers, okay, I've been here before, I subconsciously already know what to do. All right, enough of game IQ. Let's move to the second one. Ball control. Ball control is quite possibly the most important skill in football. The reason why ball control impacts game speed is because you can have the game IQ and the understanding of triggers in football. Like, for example, when your center back gets the ball, that means you can drop down as a midfielder and check in, receive that ball. But once you receive that ball, if you're not able to turn, if you're not able to carry out the technical ability of receiving and turning, then what does it matter? At the end of the day, football is played with your feet. So while you can have everything here going crazy, if your feet are not able to keep up with it, then you're really not doing anything. So that's why, perfecting your ball control becomes massive. As you see again in this clip of Iniesta winning the World Cup for his country, bro, it's simply from his first touch. That first touch that he set himself up perfectly to shoot this ball set him up so well that it was literally centimeters, inches away from the defender so that he can shoot that ball. So yeah, by now I'm pretty sure you can see why it's important. Real quick, let's talk about how to train ball control. So with that said, there are 3 methods that I'm using, and the first one is what I call wall ball. This is a drill you're gonna hear me speak about a lot on this channel because of how dense it is with value and benefit. So wall ball is a drill where you go up against the wall with your ball, and you simply pass the ball and receive it in every single way possible. And when I say every single way, I literally mean that. Get creative with it, do a little Rabona touch, receive it with the inside of your foot, with the outside, receive it in the air, pass it in the air, receive it with your thigh, with your feet, with your head, with your chest. Try to just get comfortable with the ball and receiving it and passing it in every single way. Now, the reason why this is so important is because football matches have so much variability to them. This means that there are so many different situations in which you would control a ball to the point where it's almost like every single pass is a little bit different. You're a little bit further down the line, the ball is a little bit more in the air, it's a little bit more on a top spin, a little bit more on your left foot. So in a perfect world, the most ideal way of training your ball control would be simply by just playing as many games as possible, by playing 1,000 matches. But physically, that's impossible. You're not able to withstand that. And even within a match, you're not on the ball for like more than 5-10 minutes. So my thinking was, okay, I perhaps can't do that, but what's the closest I can get to that? Which is wall ball. You see, because you're in front of a wall, every time you pass it, it's just coming right back to you. You know what that means, bro? You can get hundreds of reps in within the span of an hour. You can pass that ball back and forth, and within the span of a minute, you can get 60, 50, 40 reps. And here's the cool part. Every time you pass the ball against the wall, it also comes back to you in a different way, just like a match, right? The wall is notorious for bouncing the ball in a different position each time. Trust me, I played wall ball myself and I know how it is. Yes, it's generally the same, like if you're passing the ball on the ground and receiving it, but there's always a little difference in the way the ball comes to you after it bounces off the wall. So with that said, my logic was just put the two together, a drill that has a lot of variability and that can allow me to get many reps in without getting taxed and physically sore. And the best thing I've been able to come up with is wall ball that meets both of that criteria. So that's one method to improve your ball control. There are several other ways that you can improve in your ball control. And if you're really interested in that and want to master that, then check out these other videos I have on my channel where I go into a more in-depth, detailed way of training ball control and give other methods as well. Let's move to the third element that impacts game speed. Speed. Yes, your athletic ability, your physical ability of running fast. So simply put, if you're able to run fast, you can quite literally change the speed of play with your speed. Like if you can just run faster than another player, you are directly changing the speed of the game with your own physical ability. And if we're being honest, that's the one skill that makes some of the best players in history the best players in history, right? Like when you look at Cristiano Ronaldo, Ronaldo Nazario, Messi, Neymar, all these guys, yes, their dribbling's impeccable, their shooting's impeccable. I'm not arguing any of that. However, a lot of their plays, as you can see here, are heavily dependent on how fast they can run. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't make them any less, good at what they do. It's just simply a part of their playing style. And it's a part of what makes footballers good, right? One of the best defenders in the world, Virgil van Dijk, is pretty good because he can keep up with players like Mbappe and all these guys, as you can see. So I don't think this one needs too much explanation or justification. I'm sure you're probably with me on this one. How to get faster? That's a loaded question. I would need to make a whole video about this, but I'll give you one thing that you can do right now as if after you click off this video to train it. And that is bare feet sprinting. I know it sounds very weird, very different than what you've heard of. Let me real quick explain to you why bare feet sprinting can make you faster. So when I think about sprinting, I think about the 3 elements that go into it. Yes, your genetic ability, like your fast twitch muscles that I'm not gonna act like are not true. Yes, they definitely are true, but it's not the end it be all, because there's also your technique, which directly affects how efficient you're able to absorb and generate force off of the ground. And then obviously there's power. That's simply your physical strength to push into the ground as hard as you can so that it can spring back up. Those 3 things are the pillars of speed. There are other things too, but if you're able to work on those 3 things, you're able to get some good gains. So back to bare feet sprinting. When you go barefoot, ideally on grass or sand, what you're doing is practicing your technique in a very primal way, so your feet is getting the most optimal stimulus of landing on the ground. There is no more accurate or real stimulus you can get from making contact with the ground as you do in your bare feet. When you're bare feet, you literally work on the exact striking of your feet to the ground from, the top to the bottom to the heels to the big toe, and it all kind of goes very, very naturally and smoothly. So that's how it improves your technique. And then the second thing is improving your strength. Now there's different places that you need strength in your body to run faster, but one that goes over many people's heads that's, really underlooked, but insanely important when it comes to running faster, is strength in the ankles and in the Achilles. This is also known as ankle stiffness. As you can see in all of these clips of players running, their heels don't make contact with the ground. This means that their ankles and their Achilles are so stiff that they're able to just run essentially on the balls of their feet. And the word stiff might throw you off, because I know stiff is usually a bad thing when your muscles are tight and stiff and you're not able to move. But you actually want your ankles and your Achilles to be stiff here, because think about it like a spring. The softer a spring is, the less it's able to bounce off the ground and spring into the air. But when you get a spring that's really dense with wire and really hard and really stiff, even just a little push of it will absolutely spring it up into the air. Your Achilles, your ankles work the same way. So that's the reason why I say building strength in your ankles and your Achilles is really important. And running bare feet does exactly this because of the way your feet contact the ground when you run bare feet. You see, modern day shoes are usually designed in the way where, number 1, the sole is thick, and number 2, the sole gets thicker as it goes into the heel, giving your heel an elevated, surface. This makes you heel strike a lot more than you normally would if you were bare feet on ground. And if you don't believe me, go try it. Go bare feet on the grass and realize how much your brain tells, your feet to not heel strike. It's pretty crazy. You still are going to touch the ground with your heel here and there, but a lot more force is being placed on the balls of your feet, just naturally by your brain's instinct to do it when you're bare feet. So that allows you to transfer as much force to the balls of your feet where it should be, and stiffening that ankle and Achilles to make you spring faster. So that wraps up the 3 biggest elements that I've concluded are the most important ones when it comes to playing quicker, aka manipulating game speed. So yeah, man, that's all I got for you today. My name is Wazani. I'm an aspiring professional footballer trying to land the contract within the next couple of years. And I'm just documenting my journey on YouTube, sharing all the lessons I learned and the methods of training that work, that don't work, the mistakes I make, the successes I have, so that other like-minded footballers like yourself can hopefully learn something valuable. If that sounds interesting to you, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.